Welcome children. Today we continue with chapter 5 of civics, working of institutions for standard 9, and this is the third part of the lesson. Now children, do you remember the story of the office memorandum which we learned when we started the chapter? We found that the person who signed the document did not take this decision. He was only executing the policy decision taken by someone else. Today we are going to learn how the second branch of the government, that is the executive, works. Now the Prime Minister is the head of the government and he plays an important role in taking decisions. But we know that he could not have taken that decision if he did not have the support from the Lok Sabha. So he is actually only executing the wishes of the Parliament. Now, who are the executives? Executives are those who execute and enforces the policies and decisions of the government. So, when we talk of the government, we usually mean the executive. Now, in a democratic country, two categories make up the executive. One that is elected by the people for a specific term, they're called as political executives, and these political leaders who take big decisions fall in this category. The second category are people who are appointed on a long-term basis. They are called as permanent executive or civil services. Persons who are working in civil services are called as civil servants. They have to pass that UPSC exam and then they are inducted into the civil services. They remain in office even after the ruling party changes. These officers work under political executives and assist them in carrying out day-to-day administration. Now children, you might ask, why does the political executive have more power than the non-political executive? Or why is the minister more powerful than a civil servant? Now a civil servant is usually more educated and has more expert knowledge of the subject, whereas the political executives may be less educated. Now, a civil servant has more knowledge because he has passed the UPSC exam and studied hard for it. Okay, so obviously he has more knowledge than a minister. Now, once a minister is given a portfolio, it does not mean that he has full technical knowledge about that ministry that he holds. Okay, so and he cannot run the ministry alone. So, to assist him, there are these civil servants who guide and advise the ministers on all technical matters. And just like if there is a finance minister, then the minister may not have very much knowledge about these technical matters that come under his ministry. This could happen to any ministry like defense, industry, health, science, technology, mines. So the civil servants who work under him, they are called as secretary or joint secretary. They guide and advise the minister, but the decision of the minister is final on all matters. Now children, why should the minister have a final say on all matters? The reason is very simple. In a democracy, the will of the people is supreme. Okay, because he has been elected, the minister has been elected by the people. He is elected representatives, and thus we empower him to exercise the will of the people on their behalf. Okay, he or she is finally answerable to the people for all the consequences of a decision. Whatever decision he takes, whatever the results are, he is going to be responsible. And that is why ministers take all final decisions. The minister decides the overall framework and objectives in which decisions or policy should be made. The minister is not expected to be an expert in matters of the ministry. It's not expected that he knows everything in the ministry. So he takes advice of the experts that are there who work under him on all technical matters. But very often experts hold different opinions. Like some expert may say something, the other may say something, and place them before the minister. But the minister now, depending on all the options given to him, he decides. Okay, actually this happens in any organizations. Those who understand the overall picture take the most important decisions, not the experts. The experts can only give you the route or the decision that they feel is correct, but someone who has a larger view decides the destination. So in a democracy, elected ministers perform this role. Now, after the elections, the political party that had secured the maximum seats forms the government, and all the members of that majority party, who are called as MPs, will sit in the parliament. And among these members of the majority party, they choose a leader who becomes the prime minister. Now, once the members of the majority party select their leader, the president appoints him as the prime minister. Okay, so you see, children, there is no direct elections to the post of prime minister. And the president cannot appoint anyone he or she likes. The president appoints the leader of the majority party or the coalition party. Okay, now, who commands the majority in the Lok Sabha as prime minister. In case no single party or alliance gets a majority, the president appoints the person most likely to secure a majority support. The prime minister does not have a fixed tenure. Okay, although he's chosen for 5 years, there's no fixed tenure. He continues to be in power as long as he remains the leader of the majority party or coalition party. So you see, children, these are the pictures of our prime minister right from 1947 with Jawaharlal Nehru to present day Narendra Modi. After the appointment of the prime minister is free to choose his council of ministers from the elected members of his party, and if he wants somebody else to become a minister who is not a member of the parliament, then that person has to get elected to one of the House of Parliament within 6 months of his appointment as minister. Now, after he has selected his ministry, his council of ministers, he sends this list to the president to officially take the oath. The president then appoints these council of ministers on the advice of the prime minister, and an oath ceremony takes place. Now, who are council of ministers? It is a body of 60 to 80 ministers of various ranks who have been appointed by the president on the advice of the prime minister. Now, the council of ministers have been divided into 3 categories: cabinet minister, minister of state with independent charge, and ministers of state. Now, who are the cabinet ministers? They are usually the top level leaders of the ruling party, and they are in charge of a major ministry like finance, education, defense, home. Okay, and they meet to take decisions, and this is actually a smaller group which is also called as the inner ring of the council of ministers, and it comprises of 25 ministers. Okay, now ministers of state with independent charge are usually in charge of smaller ministries, and they participate in the cabinet meetings only when they are specially invited. Now, ministers of states are attached to and required to assist the cabinet ministers. Now, children, since it is not practical for all ministries to meet regularly and discuss everything, the decisions are taken in cabinet meetings with a smaller group. Okay, and this is why parliamentary democracy in most countries is often referred to as the cabinet form of government, and the cabinet works as a team. Now, the cabinet works as a team. The ministers may have different views and opinions, but everyone has to own up to every decision of the cabinet. No minister can openly criticize any decision of the government, even if it is about another ministry or department. Now, every ministry has secretaries who are civil servants. These secretaries provide the necessary background information to the ministers to take decisions. The cabinet as a team is assisted by a cabinet secretariat. This includes many senior civil servants who try to coordinate the working of different ministries. The Prime Minister is the head of the department. Apart from that, he has wide-ranging powers. He chairs cabinet meetings. He coordinates the work of different departments. His decisions are final in case disagreements arise between departments. He exercises general supervisions of different ministries. All ministries work under his leadership. The Prime Minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He also has the power to dismiss ministers. Okay. Now children, if the Prime Minister has given his resignation, then all the ministers have to resign with him. Now who is the head of the Parliament? It's the Prime Minister. Who is the head of the government? It is the Prime Minister. And who is the head of the cabinet? It is again the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister controls both the government and the Parliament. Now since the Prime Minister controls both the government and the Parliament, this parliamentary form of government is often referred to as Prime Minister form of government. So we have seen the tendency towards concentration of powers in the hands of Prime Minister. Our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru also exercised enormous authority because he had a great influence over the public. Even Indira Gandhi ji was also a very powerful leader compared to her colleagues in the cabinet. Of course, the extent of power wielded by the Prime Minister also depends on the personality of the person holding that position. Now children, today we have a majority government which is run by Narendra Modi, but earlier times we had more of a coalition government. All of you know what is a coalition government. When no party gets clear-cut majority in the elections, then two or more parties join together to form a government. Now in such a situation like a coalition government, the Prime Minister cannot take decisions as he wants to. He has to consult all the party members in order to take a decision, and because he has to look into their views and then only go ahead with a decision, because if he doesn't go with their views, then he will lose the support and the government will fall. So in a coalition government, the Prime Minister does not have that power. He has to accommodate according to the people who have joined his government. So the Prime Minister is the head of the government. The President is the head of the state. In our political system, the head of the state exercises only nominal powers. Okay, the President of India is like the Queen of Britain, whose functions are to a large extent ceremonial. It's only for the namesake that they have the powers and they are addressed. Okay, but the real power lies with the Prime Minister. Okay, the President supervises the overall functioning of all the political institutions in the country so that they operate in harmony to achieve the objectives of the country. Now the President is not elected directly by the people. So who elects the President? The elected members whom we have voted of the Parliament, that is the MPs, and the elected members of the legislative assemblies, the MLAs, elect the President. Now a candidate standing for President's post has to get a majority of votes to win the election. This ensures that the President can be seen as a representative of the entire nation. At the same time, the President can never claim that kind of direct popular mandate that the Prime Minister has. Okay, so he remains only a nominal executive. Now let us look into the powers of the President. All government activities takes place in the name of the President. All laws and major policy decisions of the government are issued in his name. All major appointments are made in the name of the President. These include the appointment of the Chief Justice of India, the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court of the state, the governors of the state, the election commissioners, ambassadors to other countries, etc. All international treaties and agreements are made in the name of the President, and the President is the supreme commander of the defense forces of India. But we should remember that the President exercises all these powers only on the advice of the Council of Ministers. Okay? The President can ask the Council of Ministers to reconsider its advice, but if the same advice is given again, then the President is bound to act according to it. He has to accept it. Similarly, a bill passed by the Parliament becomes a law only after the President signs the bill. Okay, if the President wants, he can delay this for some time, and send the bill back to the parliament for reconsideration. But if the parliament passes the bill again, then he has no option but to sign it. Now children, you may wonder, what does the president really do? Can he do anything on his own at all? There is one very important thing that he should do on his own: appoint the prime minister. When a party or a coalition of parties secures a clear majority in the election, the president has to appoint the leader of the majority or the coalition that enjoys the majority support in the Lok Sabha. But when no party or coalition gets a majority in the Lok Sabha, the president exercises his discretion. He now has to decide that then president appoints a leader who in his opinion can get the majority support in the Lok Sabha. In such a case, the president can ask the newly appointed prime minister to prove majority support in the Lok Sabha within a specified time, within a time limit. Now let's just recap. What is the legislature? It consists of the parliament, that is the president, and two houses, that is the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. As I told you, the Lok Sabha, the elections are held and the people of the country vote and elect their representatives from the 543 constituencies, and all these will sit in the parliament. Okay, and the leader of the majority party becomes the prime minister. Okay, and Rajya Sabha, as I told you, the members are elected indirectly by the elected MLAs of all the states. Okay, and all these, what is the work of the president, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha? All the members, their work is to enact laws and approve bills. Okay. Now the parliament's legislative branch consists of the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. Okay, and Rajya Sabha is the upper house. Maximum members are 250, and at present there are 245 members, and these members are elected indirectly by all the MLAs, that is member of the legislative assemblies of all the states. Lok Sabha is the lower house. Maximum seats are 552. At present there are 545 members, and they are elected directly by the people from 543 constituencies. Two are nominated by the president of the Anglo-Indian community. And these, with the help of the Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, laws are made, and once they are passed by both the houses, they are sent to the president for his signature, and then it is implemented. So this is the legislative part of the parliament. Now what is the executive branch? They are the government. It consists of the president, vice president, council of ministers, and attorney general. And what is their work? Implement laws and present bills. So the role of the parliament is also to select the national government or the executive. Okay, apart from legislation, it also has a role to select the government. Now the prime minister selects ministers from among his colleagues who have won the elections and are sitting in the parliament, and together with the council of ministers they form the government. And that government is, when we say government, we mean by executive. So the parliamentary system that we have in our country, the executive, that is the government, has a dual responsibility. One, as the executive, they have to implement laws. And secondly, as they are members of the legislature, they belong to the Lok Sabha, they also have to fulfill responsibilities of the legislature, that is making laws. So you see children, the main difference between legislative and executive is that the Parliament of India comes under the legislative branch, and the Prime Minister and his Council of Ministers come under the executive branch. Now with this we conclude the third part of the lesson. In our last concluding part, we will discuss the next institution, that is the judiciary. Till then, do view and subscribe. Thank you.